here. Pamela Barnett, is that you? Are you joining us right now?
Yes, I'm joining you right now.
Oh, that's
Can you hear
terrific.
me?
Pamela, welcome to the program. Yes, I hear you loud and clear. Are you coming in loud and clear on my end, on your end too?
Yes. Very loud and clear.
Okay, good. Pamela, you have been very, very busy trying to find out from the Department of State what has happened to Obama's mother, Stanley Ann Dunham's passport and her consular papers. For the benefit of the listeners, start from the beginning and tell us the story. We are curious. Go ahead.
Well, the beginning started a long time ago. It was before the usurper was sworn into office illegally. I sent it off, the original FOIA request, probably about the 8th of January or so. And I was asking for, and I put an emergency caveat on it to ask them to address it quickly. Of course, they didn't do it. It's been 2 years. But what I asked for is Obama's mother's, Stanley Ann Dunham's passport records from 1959 to 1962, as well as her consular records, just to show if she could have been out of country during the time that he said that he was born in Hawaii. And just finally got something back in December, and basically they said that they gave me passport applications I didn't request from passport application material from 1965 on, but didn't include the application for 65. And they gave a generalized statement saying that some passport records were destroyed to reduce the amount of records at the records center where they store the records. And do you have a question so far?
And when you were told that, did that raise a flag in your mind about why would they destroy these records? I mean, did you delve into what the rules were about destruction of records?
Well, I've been actively involved. I've been an activist in trying to get to the truth about Obama since 2008, around October 2008 or September 2008. And so I know almost all the key players pretty well and have been in contact with most of them. And one of the key players is Christopher Strunk. He actually has a FOIA lawsuit against the Department of State for Stanley Ann Dunham's passport records. And he and I communicate together, and we have in the past, and so he was keeping me in the loop on what was going on. And for the lawsuit, the State Department submitted this very highly suspect document saying it was a communication cable from the U.S. Embassy to the Kabul and Beirut embassies in 1984. I think it was 1984. And anyway, a couple people that he was in contact with, one of them was a former federal agent, I forget, an investigator, and he thought it was very fishy, the whole thing, and he wrote an affidavit talking about it, and then another person wrote an affidavit. And when I got my response in December, I thoroughly combed through their affidavits, and then I really went to task on the alleged cable that was sent to the embassies talking about a purge project where they were destroying passport records.
And what did you find?
So what I found is that, I read the alleged cable, and I was really dumbfounded about how ridiculous it was, because everything I read on it wasn't making any sense. And so I started combing through policies and procedures of the State Department regarding the storage and destruction of records. And that's how I put together Go ahead.
You said you referred to it as the alleged cable. Why do you say alleged? Do you think that the cable was a forgery or fake?
Yes, absolutely. I think the cable is a fake, as well as the alleged purge project is a fake.
Well, really, what makes you think that the cable was a fake, and that you're implying here that the records still exist?
Right. Well, the only reason why they wouldn't exist is if they were illegally destroyed, and that would, because there's absolutely no proof of this purge project within any of the policies or record schedules of the State Department. And the record schedules dictates how long records will be kept, and where will they be kept, when will they be transferred somewhere else, and when will they be destroyed.
Okay,
and,
so based on that, what did you...
Yeah, so based on that, for the years for the passport applications for Stanley Ann Dunham, that would meet, they're supposed to keep her records. There's a year group between 1925 and 1970, and they're supposed to keep those passport records for 100 years and then destroy. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't been 100 years, obviously, since she applied for her passport records in the 1960s or earlier. And there's no exceptions listed anywhere in any of their record schedules that talk about any exceptions. So they should still have her passport records.
So, okay, as a result of that then, and now you started on this journey, if you will. When did you begin? What year?
I submitted the FOIA request in 2009, early January, before Obama was sworn in to office.
Okay. And at that time, they told you that the records had been destroyed at that time? Or no, they sent you information.
No, they just
sent you information about something you hadn't even asked, right?
Right. Well, I didn't get I only got a response from them about 20 days or 30 days later saying they received my requests and they would process it. And almost 2 years later, I finally got a letter from them with passport applications I didn't request.
With the passport identification, what request? I'm sorry.
That I did not request. They sent me
that you did not request.
Right. And I think I think they're trying to placate me for them taking 2 years to get back to me. So they're like, oh, we'll just give her some passport records that she didn't ask for, and she should go away, is I think what they're thinking.
Well, that's the same tactic that the state of Hawaii used with some of the people who were writing in requesting copies of Obama's birth certificate. The response that they were given had nothing to do with the request that they were making.
Right.
It seems to be a standard operating procedure. So what did you do at that point?
So, like as I was saying earlier, I received this response from them in December, and just a few weeks ago, a little over a month ago, and for the last, it took me probably a couple weeks of researching and putting together all the facts. And not only did I want to show that the passport records should still be there, and if they're not, they were illegally destroyed. And I also wanted to show that the alleged communication was also a forgery. because I just wanted to discredit everything within that cable that was sent, the alleged cable that was sent, and I think I pretty much did that. There's nothing factual about that cable. I don't know if you had a chance to read it or not.
I read we should tell the folks that you have a link to it from your website, and your website is unlawfulpresident.com, and the link takes you to scribd.com, where the document is, where your letter to the Department of State resides here regarding this, and so I've read it, but let's assume that the listeners haven't read it, so let's talk about what's in that letter to them.
Okay, yes. Sorry about that. I shouldn't be assuming here. So essentially, one of the things I point out in the letter is the fact that, according to the schedules, they should still have her passport records. Another thing I point out is that the alleged cable was sent to 2 different embassies in 2 different diplomatic regions, which I thought was very odd. I couldn't. Well, they're going to 2 different. If it's cable, it's going to 2 different numbers. Why would you put 2 different embassies if they're going on one cable? If it's going to 2 different addresses, that didn't make sense to me. And then there were also in different diplomatic regions. It wasn't like they were neighboring. It was like a neighboring region, or like a sister office, or something like that. So I thought that was odd. And then also I thought about it. I was like, well, Kabul in the 1980s there's a war going on there, and so it's very odd that they would bring up this cable instead of an actual. Why didn't they show me the alleged Purge Project policy paper or mandate or something talking about the Purge Project? Why didn't they send me that? Why are they sending me this very weird cable as supposed proof that Stanley Ann Dunham's records were destroyed?
So in other words, they didn't tell you right from the get-go that there had been a Purge Project. They sent you something that they thought would satisfy you and make you go away, and only when you came back at them a second time did they say, oh, whoops, those have been purged.
No, actually, well, it's kind of close to what you're saying. What I did is I used what was admitted, what they had submitted to court for Chris Strunk's FOIA case against them, and I took that, what they had submitted. Sorry, I could see your confusion now. Going back, they had submitted this alleged communication in his lawsuit, and because it applies to what I was asking for, I took that and used that in my response to them because it applied. Because basically that's sworn. They're swearing when they admit it in court that's to the best of their knowledge an accurate piece of information, an accurate document, a real document.
Right.
So I took that and I used it for my response, and I tore it apart. If you look at my documents in ScribD, it tears apart just basically about every part of that cable. Not only
before you. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your thought, and I have another question for you. But go ahead, please.
Sure. And the cable, it also talks about how it gives times and dates of records, and regarding the alleged Purge Project, and they talked about records being at the FRC since 1925, and
what does that
one
mean?
thing that FRC means.
FRC. What does that mean?
When I'm assuming what they mean in the cable referring to is the Federal Records Center.
Oh, okay.
And,
okay, thank you. All right.
And so one thing I've learned over the last couple of years is to not trust anything. So everything they put in that cable, I questioned. And I looked up everything to verify if it was true or not. And so then I looked up FRC, the history of FRC. Well, FRC didn't start until 1950. But in the cable, it says the records were there since 1925. So that alleged fact wasn't true in the cable. And then
so there's a discrepancy right there.
Right. And then they talked about the fact that they were moving, that they had the records. I'll tell you the things that were fishy to me and that set off alarms, is that supposedly the State Department hired 40 people to call, what they said call, C-U-L-L, 125 million records. And they didn't specifically say how many they destroyed, or if they destroyed all of them. It was a very vague cable, and I think it was intentionally vague, as vague as they could possibly make it. So, well, I have experience as a military officer. I'm a retired military officer, Army officer, and everything they were talking about, this operation, made no sense to me. It's because they said then that they hired these 40 people at the State Department to call these records, and the records were already at the FRC, Federal Records Center, supposedly. And why weren't they destroyed on site there? Why didn't they go through the records on site? Why were we going to pay to transfer 125 million records to another location for destruction, another undisclosed location for destruction? So I thought that was, and they listed as reasoning for doing the Purge project was to save money, because they would experience great cost savings or something like that. And I thought, well, how can it be cost savings? Like to move the records, that many records, from one location to another, and instead of just destroying them on site, having the 40 people go into the FRC and destroy them there. And then I thought, well, why are they hiring 40 people to do this when the Federal Records Centers, that's their job, is to destroy records? And so why didn't the FRC destroy the records themselves? Their job is to store and destroy records. Store, transfer, and destroy records. That is their only job. And so they're, experts at doing that properly. And then I thought, well, maybe they needed. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Maybe they needed what?
Then I thought maybe they needed specific expertise that only a State Department employee would have to look through the records to decide which ones to destroy and which ones not to destroy. But then I looked again, and it said that they hired 40 new people. So obviously those people didn't have the experience either.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If they're just hiring them, then they're not long-time experienced state workers, State Department workers that really understand and know the State Department records. So that shot that one out of the possible reason too. So it wasn't cost savings, and they weren't, the record.
Well, let me pause here. Let me interrupt you here, and I just want to read from your letter to the State Department here, where you say, first of all, I question the peculiarity of the communication based on who it is supposedly to, Beirut and Kabul embassies. why just these two embassies when they are in different diplomatic regions and both had wars raging around them along with bombings? Why would the Department of State list two different embassies together on the communication when they were going to two different locations? Why not a communication addressed just to Kabul and another addressed just to Beirut? Kabul didn't even have an official embassy in the 1980s, according to the Afghanistan embassy. Routine correspondence is not a record type that requires long-term storing, as you can verify with the passport record schedules. It would be highly unlikely for a routine correspondence to not be destroyed before 20 years. And according to this alleged Purge Project correspondence, the passport records the Department of State wanted to destroy were located at the FRC before they moved them to an undisclosed location to be destroyed. Passport records after 1925 are maintained by Passport Services until they're scheduled to be transferred to the National Archives at 50 years or destroyed at 100 years, according to record schedules on Department of State's website. If this alleged communication were factually correct, this would have meant that there was an unscheduled, and you've got that underlined, unscheduled transfer of passport documents from Department of State to the FRC because a move to an FRC or WNRC, whatever that is not included in the passport record schedules. Well, you've certainly done your homework because you have also included here, you have exhibits that back this up. You say in order to transfer unscheduled records to an FRC, agencies must, and then you list all the things that the agencies must do in writing prior to the transfer of these documents. So you're maintaining that there should be paperwork that backs up the unscheduled transfer of these documents. Is there such paperwork that exists?
Well, that's what I requested. Well, there's supposed to be paperwork if that Purge project is real. So I'm giving them the 3%, 2%, 1% benefit of the doubt that the program existed, which I strongly believe it didn't exist. That if it existed, then you need to produce all this paperwork that supports that it existed. We need the transfer paperwork. You need a chain of title of documents that are destroyed for federal documents, and they didn't produce that.
A chain of title, is that like a chain of possession where you can track? Okay, person A had the document and handed it to person B. Okay.
Yeah, and then a verification. And then a verification of destruction. So not only do you have the transfer going from one place to another, all those records are supposed to be kept forever.
Right.
And then you have the verification of destruction.
And then just to, again, reiterate what you were talking about with these 40 new people, you wrote that the Department of State cannot use the excuse that they needed specific Department of State expertise to do the destruction because they allegedly hired 40 new people and did not even say if they were contractors or employees, and that it's very unlikely that only 40 people handled combing through 125 million documents to destroy, quote, many in only 9 months, 22 working days a month average. That equals, and you did your homework on this, that equals 3,125,000 records per worker, or approximately 15,782 records each day to evaluate and then destroy targeted records. This would be an impossible task.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
You also say that the department. Oh, go ahead.
It was just those things. I mean, they just jumped out at me when I was reading that alleged cable. I'm like, what? 120? Being a military officer, you had to plan how many workers it would take to do a job, and so I was thinking like a military officer, and I was thinking like 125 million records for 40 people. It just doesn't sound right. So then I did the math.
It really, yeah.
And
you're right.
It's bizarre. Oh, I just wanted to. Go ahead. I just wanted to say one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
right before the show, my throat was sore, and I took this drink, and I'm having kind of like a what do you call it? Kind of breathing reaction to it. So that's why I'm kind of like short of breath. But I'm okay.
Gosh, I hope it's not anaphylactic shock.
No. I took some it's like licorice and something herbal remedy, and kind of made me like I guess hyper, like where it's my breathing is kind of fast right now. So I just wanted to.
Oh, I hope you're okay. Oh my goodness.
I'm fine.
Okay, well, I hope you're going to be okay.
I just normally speak better, and I just wanted to let you know that.
Oh, you're doing fine. You're doing fine.
Thanks for reading all that. I think that was a better way to let people know what's going on, is to actually read some of the parts of the letter. Definitely. Yeah, your letter it's very, very well put together. It really is. You also talk about, you address, as you said, the alleged significant savings as the reason for destruction, according to the Department of State. And you say that if that were the case, why weren't the alleged documents destroyed on site at the FRC to avoid the presumably large cost to transfer them to another location? And why were 40 new people hired instead of using the trained staff at the FRC? Very good questions. It's going to be interesting to see what they come back with to these questions. I wonder if they're just going to, again, ignore your questions and paper it over with generic answers. Thank you so much for writing. We appreciate your interest. See you later kind of thing. Right. They'll probably, I don't know if they'll try to create some other document to try to say it was real, or they'll either, or force it into, they'll just say, okay, well, we don't have anything else, you're going to have to sue us. So then I'll have to pay the $300-something and take them to court. So that's ultimately what it is. So you're asking, in this letter, you are asking them to provide the SAD records. And SAD stands for, again, what is that, SAD? Stanley Ann Dunham. Stanley Ann Dunham. Oh, okay, for her record. Okay, Stanley Ann Dunham, her name. Okay. So you're regarding her records, you're requesting the passport indexes, which are certified copies for Stanley Ann Dunham, also known as Obama, from the years 1959 to 1962, that you said that the permanent paper index cards would show all passports that were issued to Dunham and allow those passport applications to be located. You're also asking for microfilm archives, not just the database, because as you say, a database could contain errors or omissions. And Barack Obama's passport records, you say, were infiltrated by a contractor for his political appointee, John Brennan, who is now the National Security Advisor for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism. Right. But back then, he was, who was he with? Was it the FBI? What agency was he with at the time? Do you recall? When the passport records were infiltrated, he was, I think he was just, had his own business, and a contractor for his business was the one who went into Obama's passport records. And that's all public record. Yeah, and then he got rewarded for, he got a job, a federal position for doing the break-in, is my accusation. That gives us if that's true, that gives us a reassuring feeling that this is who we have in charge at the highest levels of Homeland Security, which would go to explain a lot of things. Certainly would at this point. They always say there's no coincidences in politics, and I don't think that there are. Right. They were working for him, for Brennan. They got infiltrated. And then the report that ensued, the investigation that occurred because of the break-in, was heavily redacted by the State Department. And because they're saying that the passport records I'm requesting aren't available because they were destroyed, and I'm saying they're illegally destroyed, so I want you to produce that heavily redacted investigation into Obama's records, passport break-in. So that, citizens deserve to know what was in there. Did he have passports from Indonesia, from Kenya, he was Kenyan. Why couldn't he get a Kenyan passport? And he was Indonesian. I'm sure he had an Indonesian passport at one time. How long did he have that passport? Did he use that to travel to Pakistan in 1981? Or, there's like 5 years of his life, 4 or 5 years of his life that are really unaccounted for in the 80s when, after he went to, when he was supposedly at Columbia, and there's no proof he ever went there, from that time period, and there was another couple of years then before he went to Harvard. So there's like 4 or 5 years that is really unaccounted for. So you wonder where he was and what he was doing. And if he was in Pakistan in 81, where else did he go from there? And what did he do in Pakistan?
Yeah.
How long was he there?
Yeah.
There's also, the Russians were there in Pakistan in the early 80s. So, because of what was going on in Afghanistan. So
you think there might be a connection there? You think that there might be a connection there?
With the Russians? With communism?
Yes.
I think there might be. I think that Obama owes a lot of people a lot of things, and I think he's being blackmailed and pressured by a lot of different forces. He was excuse me a second. According to Percy Sutton, for example, his Harvard education was paid for by the Saudis. So he owes the Saudis. Yeah. And then there was never an investigation into all of his campaign funds. He receiving foreign funds. And the FEC has never done an investigation into the 2008 campaign contributions. And what's really scary is that a lot of these people working in the high echelons of our federal government, they don't really seem like they have allegiance to America, and it's kind of scary.
They only have allegiance to themselves and the power, and not to the country.
That's why I kind of wrote the appeal the way I did for a couple of different reasons. One was for getting it publicized and kind of telling the whole story around the passport issues for Stanley Ann Dunham, Obama's mother, and Obama. And then also I wanted to write it so that Chris Strunk could include it, do a judicial notice on what I wrote for my appeal. So he can include that in his lawsuit.
That's the question I wanted to ask you earlier, and that is Christopher Strunk's lawsuit. What does his lawsuit consist of?
Well, his lawsuit is just for basically the same thing as mine. He doesn't specifically ask for consular records like I do. He's asking for passport records. And I think that his records, when he was asking for records, I don't think he went back as far as I did. I think he started at 61. But so anyway, because, I also don't believe, Obama was born in 61. He could have been, but we don't have any proof that he was born in 61. So I'm back a couple years to ask for records until, at least until 59. And then I included also that I wanted to have all index records, not even specifically for Stanley Ann Dunham, but they're generalized printout records of consular records of birth. And I asked for Kenya, / Mombasa, and also asked for Canada, because
now why is that? Why Canada as well? Do you have a suspicion that he may have been born in Canada, or that his mother was in Canada?
Well, I think it could be possible because, if he was born in August of 61, she was in class 2 or 3 weeks later, and it would have been easier to come down from Canada to go to class at University of Washington,
right,
rather than do a flight all the way.
Yeah, from Hawaii. Jack Cashel is coming out with a book. We've talked about it on this program several times, called Deconstructing Obama. And he matches up the dates. He takes those dates where it is unequivocal, factual, provable that certain things happened on certain dates, and he draws the conclusion based on that there's absolutely no way Stanley Ann Dunham was able to travel and be where she was with an infant Obama at the time she said she was. There's just no way. The dates do not add up. And there's something else, too, that came out recently that Obama himself said, having to do with the Bay of Pigs. And he made mention of the fact that when something had occurred, he was already 3 months old at the time, which, if you calculated it out, means that he was born in January of 1961, as opposed to August. Yeah,
well, I was thinking that, too. There was an interview with someone, a supposed friend of Stanley Ann Dunham in Washington State, and he was saying that Stanley Ann didn't know how to change diapers or something like that. She needed to help. She asked her to help her, show her how to change diapers for Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so to me, that means that he was still probably pretty young. Like, she could have had him. Yeah, because if he was already 8 months old or, whatever, over 6 months old, she would have known how to change diapers by then. It would have been old hat. So, maybe she had the baby at some type of a center for teenagers, like a teenage birth center in Canada, and where they were helping her do things like change diapers and stuff like that. And then
could be.
Yeah, who knows, I'm just saying, looking at possibilities.
Yeah. It raises more questions than it does answers, and that's pretty much what Cashel's book does in Deconstructing Obama, which is coming out, by the way, in February 15th, I think, a couple of weeks from now, 2-3 weeks from now. Excellent read. Pamela, you're going to let us know when you hear something back from these folks, huh? And so we can get you back on, and maybe you can tell us, bring us up to date when you get some information from the Department of State.
Yeah. Well, I definitely will. I don't know if you know or not, but I was on. I'm actually on a lawsuit that's up at the Ninth Circuit right now. It's Captain Pamela Barnett et al. Versus Obama. And Orly Tates is my attorney on that. So that's pending at the Ninth Circuit. And then I was on Lightfoot versus Bowen, which went up to Supreme Court, and they wouldn't hear that case either. But
I think we had you on this program before. I think with the others when you were involved in that case. I think. Do you remember that? It would have been over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. When did you get involved in that case, Lightfoot?
Oh, in January of 2009.
Yeah, sounds about right.
2 years ago.
Seems to me because we may have had you on before. But anyway, we'd like to have you on again, that's for sure. Talking about that case, too, if you can talk about it. The Ninth Circuit, boy, that's going to be a tough one for you. That's a very liberal court.
Right. Well, it doesn't matter at all. I've come to the conclusion after 2 years of trying to sue him, over 2 years of trying to sue for getting to the truth regarding Obama's eligibility. And by the way, I'm a believer in what natural-born citizen being having two American citizen parents for sure. And then I say that that they also have to be born on under the jurisdiction of the United States, meaning born in the country, or like I think, like with McCain, since he was born under a military officer, I look at that as being like a diplomat. And there's specific guidelines in the 14th Amendment that show the difference for diplomats, that they're excluded And I think that anyone working on with the federal government overseas should be considered being natural born, because they're working as essentially diplomats for the federal government.
Right.
When they go overseas. But this is a reminder, though, the 14th Amendment does not have the words natural born citizen in it at all. A lot of the OBUTs like to continually lie about that and say, the 14th Amendment makes Obama a citizen, and they completely exclude natural born citizen. And then I point that out to them, like, okay, where's the term natural born citizen in the 14th Amendment? It's not there.
Yeah,
but
that's right. Well, the mere fact that he has said that his father is Kenyan born, I mean, right there, that's it, right there. And Congress did not do its job. The secretaries of state didn't do their job. The national committees, political committees, Democratic National Committee didn't do its job. Nobody did its job, and that is frightening. What does that say about our system of checks and balances? I mean, it wasn't there. And our Congress right now is scared to death of it.
Right.
So it's going to have to be we the people. It really is. Well, people like you, Pamela, who are have the courage to do what you're doing. I mean, really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's very tiring. It's been a long, long battle, and recently I've been getting hope though, because things are starting to slip through the cracks finally with the Abercrombie thing. And the Evans interview saying that Abercrombie told him that Obama, there's no birth certificate for Obama. And so and then the DOS cover-up of Stanley and Dunham's records. And then also with Ken Allen from Arizona, the Department of Homeland Security will not release immigration records on Barry Soetoro. And immigrants are not supposed to be protected by privacy laws. And so they're illegally holding those records. And so what does that mean? It means that there are immigration records for Obama. Barry Soetoro is Obama. So that means he was an immigrant at one time. So that means he lost his citizenship, is what that tells me. So the Department of Homeland Security and the State Department are both committing fraud against the citizens of our country. And I think that, like with Watergate, I'm not an expert in Watergate, but I think that with Watergate, that what brought down President Nixon was the cover-up. It wasn't the actual crime. It was the cover-up of the crime that brought him down. And so hopefully we're on track for that. And hopefully we can get him get some action going here. We get him out of office, and we get him prosecuted for high treason and high crimes against citizens of the United States for all this fraud crimes against us.
That's going to take some spines in Congress to make that happen, and in the courts too. Again, going back to we the people have to put pressure on them to make sure that they do it.
That's why I'm changing the focus. We need to change the focus, because they're not going to make a ruling on natural born. I am 99% confident of that. So we need to look to the criminal aspect and the federal agency cover-ups. And we won't get to it directly. We're going to have to get to it indirectly. And we're doing that, with these FOIAs and exposing the cover-up of the records that would tell us that he wasn't a U.S. citizen his whole life. And might tell us, well, there is no immigration records for him repatriating back. Or who knows, maybe he became a citizen again when he got married. I don't know, was he a citizen when he went to Harvard? Who knows?
Yeah, that's true.
He could have, you need to be a citizen to go to Columbia or any of our universities.
No.
You don't have to be a citizen.
Not at all. They're plenty.
And you don't have to be a citizen to have a law degree either.
Right.
So he could have been operating as a permanent resident alien. He could have gotten his, who knows? I don't know. Maybe he just became a citizen when he got married. Who knows? And who knows if,
Wouldn't that be something?
We haven't even seen his marriage license. We haven't even seen his marriage license.
No, that's true.
We've seen nothing.
I know.
We've seen nothing.
Really. Well, Pamela, keep up the good fight, and we'll be keeping track of what you're doing, and keep us informed. Put me on your email list if you have one, and and we will really appreciate Charles Kirshner keeping us up to date with what's going on with you too. So we're here with you.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Citizen Wells WordPress and the Give Us Liberty 1776 blog spot for helping to let people know about the interview tonight. Hopefully you had a good numbers tonight for the interview.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, Pamela, the piano's starting to play. That means we're running out of time here on this end.
Thank you again.
So,
and sorry again that I was having problems breathing.
No, we're sorry you were having problems breathing too. I hope it's better.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you take care of yourself, and thanks again for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it, and keep up the good fight. We'll be keeping up with it with you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Pamela Barnett.
Good evening.